Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Duffy. Welcome to this edition of Newsmakers. It's a 19 News Investigates digital show where we bring people in from Northeast Ohio who are making news in our community, who are shaping the way this community is going to look over the next 10, 15, and 20 years. And today we're pleased to have Ed Orcutt, the Brook Park mayor, who is here. And clearly you are right in the middle of what is going on in Northeast Ohio. And Mayor, you took office in January of 2022. And when you did that, the mayor of any city is an important job. There's safety concerns. There is a ton to do as a mayor, but you had no inkling of what you were going to get yourself into about a year after you took that job, did you?
No, I certainly didn't. And we were coming out of COVID, and there was a bunch of stuff that you inherit, and there's things that you think about that you want to iron out when you first come in, but certainly didn't think that we'd be building the next Browns football stadium in our city.
Yeah, when did the Browns come to you? Or let me ask it this question. When did you find out the Browns were thinking about Brook Park in that land there? And then when did they come to you about it, or was that one and the same?
It was one simple text from my wife's cousin. He said, I just heard ownership talking about renovations to the current stadium, or possibly building a new stadium. And as the new mayor, you know, we certainly had a lot of land to redevelop. And he had asked, you know, do you think that this could be a possibility? And I said, you know what, let me make a phone call to the developer. And from there, we made a phone call, and there was one meeting with the president of the Browns that happened a few weeks later, and then probably a month after that, I was with Jimmy and Dee discussing the possibilities of us being option B.
Wow. So you guys, you went to the Browns. That's how this started. I mean, they didn't come to you. They were talking about renovations at the stadium, and then you said, "Hey, look what we've got here." Is that
Well, we had developers that bought 208 acres in the summer of 2021. What I ended up doing is right away working with those developers immediately. When I took office in January, we had to work on a joint brownfield grant together, which we were able to be awarded $10 million to be able to take down engine plant number 2, and we're talking about
cleaning that up.
Yeah, the Ford Motor Company's land, and we're still there with Ford. We're very proud to say that Ford, their home in Brook Park, is something that we're very, very proud of. But there was 208 acres that was purchased in the summer of 2021, and I had built a relationship with the developer. The developers did have a relationship already with the Cleveland Browns, and that's how it was all associated to our city.
Okay, so basically a year after you took office, you realized this could actually happen. It was March, I believe, of 2023 when you really started talking about this. What's going through your mind at this point when you start thinking, listen, I've got a big job as the mayor of Brook Park, but this could really change my job in a big time hurry?
Well, initially I wanted to look in and make sure that I was a good regional partner. I wanted to see what exactly was happening financially for the city of Cleveland. I started diving into some of that information and finding out that, you know, this was really a big drain on the city of Cleveland. And I know sometimes people think, you know, well, there's a stadium here, it's bringing tons of commerce and a lot of revenue to the city of Cleveland, but it was just the opposite. So I wanted to make sure that I understood the financial portion of this first before we would even move forward with the opportunity.
So you're saying that the stadium, the Browns being in Cleveland, was a financial drain to the city of Cleveland?
From the research that I have done, from some of the folks that I have talked to that are behind the scenes that understand the contract very well, the rush to bring that stadium here in the late 90s was something that was remarkable. Mayor White did a wonderful job fighting for that expansion team, getting the colors back here. But when it came to the development agreement, it certainly wasn't set up for success. And also when it comes to the sin tax, when there was a renewal on that sin tax, and I'm not talking about the first one, which built the existing, the first extension.
The first extension.
First extension in 1995, which was to build our current Browns stadium. But I'm talking about this second extension in 2014, that was set up for the maintenance program, essentially for all three major sports teams. You know, when I looked into that as well too, you can see that they never accounted for inflation. They were still using the same tax rates on a pack of cigarettes that probably was $2.50 when it first started.
Right.
And when that second renewal came in, cigarettes were probably $10 a pack, but it was still at that 4.5 pennies. So those are the things that we looked into to see, you know, what are the issues, what are some of the things that we need to be cognizant about to be able to make this a reality. And moving forward, as we worked with the Haslam Sports Group, I can just say that it was nothing but open honesty, and we were able to accomplish some really great things like we have in front of us with the pre-development.
The mayor and his team of lawyers and accountants worked to get the pre-development agreement on track and to an agreement. But still, there were and are financial concerns. That's next. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Our guest is Brook Park Mayor Ed Orcutt, and our discussion centers around the development agreement of the current stadium and how that was a valuable lesson for Mayor Orcutt. The way that the business part of this was set up was not conducive to success, financial success for the city of Cleveland, correct?
I'm not going to speak for the finance department of Cleveland. I'll just tell you with some of the conversations that I've had with the city officials and understanding their financial obligations every major event at that stadium, that it was a drain. It was a negative impact financially for them. And the only way that we can avoid that is obviously to do that with guarantees. We are working on a development agreement that I believe is going to be something that will set a great precedent when it comes to professional sports. It'll have a great waterfall system within that. Obviously, I'm not going out there publicly and negotiating with that. There's still some things that we have to iron out, but we're very close to be able to present that. But a good example in the pre-development agreement is that, you know, on every major project that there is, there's a sales tax exemption. And what we have done is put legislation in front of council which would initiate that, you know, for all materials needed on that stadium. But for that, we also need to be able to cover our startup fees. Our initial startup fees need to be covered, which Haslam Sports Group will pay that up front, and then we will show more details on that in a full-blown development agreement.
Yeah. Are you confident? Because this is really important to the people in your community that this works for Brook Park, that this is, well, look, it may not be the correct term, a loss leader. Look, we've got the Browns, we've got this beautiful stadium, but it's hurting us economically. You're convinced that you're moving in the right direction to make sure.
I'm convinced that I'm going to be a great century for the residents of Brook Park,
right.
As I have been since serving on city council or as a planning commissioner. I'm going to continue to look out for the community. This has to make financial sense, Ryan.
Right.
I've said that since day one. We're not Chicago. We're not Philadelphia. We're not the size of Cleveland. Those cities are large enough with their general funds where they can absorb a negative revenue stream from a professional team. The city of Brook Park couldn't. That would destroy us.
Right.
So the way that we have to do this is that we have to be able to check the agreements. We have to make sure that we dot every I and cross every T. We have to understand not only state but federal tax codes. We have to be able to utilize those tax codes in a way that will not only be able to have that public partnership, but a smart public partnership where there's funds coming into the city of Brook Park. You know, we would love to be able to go out there and help out as much as we possibly can, which we are, but there is a certain threshold, and after that we need to make enough money to obviously pay for our increased operational costs, and then we just have to make money as a business. The city is a business. Right. So every single acre that we have, it's important that we generate the revenue to provide the services for our residents.
Have you had to hire people and bring people in, lawyers, accountants, to make sure this is working?
Absolutely. So immediately what we did is we hired outside counsel. You know, we're a unique community where we do have an elected law director and an elected finance director, and both are fantastic. They're great. But something this large, we wanted to bring in some outside counsel. So we've hired the firm Bricker, Graydon, and Wyatt, and they've been phenomenal to work with. We're working towards a new community authority, which will be introducing legislation very soon on that. And out of the 50-some new community authorities that have been generated in the state of Ohio, Bricker, Graydon, and White has performed 36 of them through townships. So we feel very confident with that. So we've brought on outside counsel. Obviously, civil engineering is very important. We want to make sure that we have the correct parking counts and that there's redundancy there. Obviously, we're working in cooperation with the Haslam Sports Group and their team. They've been phenomenal. But we always want that redundancy. We want to make sure that there's some backup. We understand it in our own terms. And I will say that, with the research that we've done for the outside work that we have counted on, it does align with what the Haslam Sports Group has been presenting. And we feel very confident that moving forward with this new piece of legislation where there's startup fees in there, that we can actually really get started. Those dominoes are starting to fall. We're going to be hiring an additional fire prevention officer for inspections. We're looking at about 18,000 total inspections when it comes to this stadium. So we've already hired in our building department. We've hired 2 new personnel inspectors for that. And those are the things that we're getting ramped up for. And then slowly but surely, as the project continues to evolve, and right before kickoff, we're going to have people even in the tax department to be able to collect the new revenues that are coming in.
Right, and that's one of the other questions I was going to ask. What is going to be the number one source of revenue for Brook Park, or don't you know at this point? Or is there just too many? You're going to be, you've got all these guys playing for the Browns. They're going to be paying income tax to Brook Park now. Is that the number one source of revenue? Where does that come from, or is that something you still have to work out and see how the pieces fall into place?
No, we're going to have to be very specific on things today. We have to know what those things are going to be today. All of that has to be vetted not only through the administration, because we want to know what the reality is, but those will also be vetted through lenders. But when you talk about what's public record and what's our number one revenue, it is income tax, in general, and the city.
As a city, before this even started,
yeah,
it's income tax.
And it is, and we're healthy and we do well. I know a lot of people go out there and say, we're broke, we don't have any money, we can't do this. Well, of course we can't meet everyone's needs in the community, but I think that we're a very good town. We're a great town. We want to make sure that we continue, that we stay strong. We make sure that this is a good, fair revenue stream that not only can make sure it takes care of the increased operational costs, but generates enough money that we can continue to hit that reset button. As we approach 70 years old, things age, and we need to be able to become more modern.
Right. I'm going to step back because I want you touched on this a little bit. You were spending money where Ford used to be there on brownfield expenditures. Did you have plans for that? What were the plans for that land, if any, before this thing with the Browns? Because that is a huge plot of land. Where were you on that? And asking because you only had a year once you were in office. So
well, we did a lot in that first year, that first 15 months. My administration were very aggressive. We have a fantastic economic development commissioner, Paul Martichek, my executive assistant, our public works director, you name it, from HR to building department, fire and police. We're a great team. We get at it every day. We GI, we get it. And we were aggressive with cleaning up Snow Road, buying hotels, working with developers, raising buildings that were in disrepair, redeveloping in different areas. And that land was just one portion of what we were doing in many ways. We were hitting the reset button. We were cutting some of the fat in spending. We were, hitting reset buttons everywhere. So the opportunity that we had over at the 208 acres was obviously a primary thing for us. And what we ended up doing is my very first piece of legislation was to support it was legislation to support a grant application to Columbus for the brownfield money, which I had an opportunity to meet with, just in my first few months, I had an opportunity to meet with Governor DeWine's team. Felt good. I got out of that meeting. We were still in COVID, and I thought, geez, I think we're going to get about 600,000, maybe a million. And then we found out about a week later we ended up getting $10 million.
Jeez.
So the cleanup started, great developers over there, and they were doing such a fantastic job over there. But we were looking at, anything from warehousing, which we weren't really excited about, but it was more of the industrial, if we can get some type of advanced manufacturing in there. And then we actually were looking into bringing in trash to be able to burn efficiently and turn that into energy. Burn garbage underneath boilers, turn that water into steam, turn that generator and hook it up to the grid. Those were some of the thoughts we were thinking about. So we were very aggressive with our redevelopment plans, and so aggressive that we were able to land the new Huntington Bank field right in our backyard.
From potentially powering an electrical grid to an NFL showpiece, how did Mayor Ed Orcutt find his footing to take on that massive job? That's coming up. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Our guest is Brook Park Mayor Ed Orcutt. A pre-development deal is in place. A new home for the Browns in Brook Park. How did Orcutt's experience provide the depth needed to get this deal done? You were in the military. You did 2 tours in Iraq, correct?
That is correct.
Right.
For Operation
So
Iraqi Freedom.
you don't get overwhelmed by a lot of things, I would imagine, after being in Iraq for 2 tours. But was there any part of you that was laying in bed at night and going, my gosh, what have I gotten myself into with this massive project that I am now trying to lead my city through?
I did experience that. It was, well, first I'm going to say this, it's going to be a premier facility and a global destination, not just for the NFL. This is going to be a great facility for this whole universe. But yeah, I did. I actually, it was overwhelming when we were so deep into it, and obviously, there's different things that were happening, which I think my military experience did help me when I was doing camp maintenance, whether that was in Kuwait in the Middle East or if we were building the front lines in Iraq. All those things did prepare me well for some of that political noise that was on the side.
Right.
That was easy to ignore. But when we had a tornado and we were the epicenter, and that was August 6, 2024, there was quite a bit going on at that time. I think it was August 7th when the videos came out and we were all prepared to be able to say, hey, the next home is going to be Brook Park. We had a tornado the day before, and we were the epicenter from what the lieutenant governor had said in all of his visits. So, I'm managing, a small town, $4.2 million in damage, and also juggling the fact that, hey, we're going live. We're saying that we're coming to Brook Park. And at that time, sometimes I was thinking, what did I get myself into?
Right.
And then, it didn't take much time. I'm, a religious person and made sure that, I spent some time with God. And I just knew that, I was very honored and blessed to be able to have this opportunity.
Right. And clearly grounded. And I think the Browns should be happy that you're the mayor that they went to for this. Let me add, you mentioned something in there. And before I get to the financing of this, you mentioned the political process and all this. How's your relationship with Chris Ronayne right now?
It's fine. It's perfect.
It's fine. Okay.
Yep.
Because he was clearly against this. So was the mayor. The mayor is, I don't know if come around is the right thing, but he's moved on from that. But you're a mayor in Cuyahoga County, where he's the executive. So it's got to be a good relationship.
Absolutely. I don't hate anybody.
No,
I don't.
I
just don't. That's just not the way that I live. I'm not bothered by people at all. One thing I can say about the county executive, he has an office to run. He has a budget to operate with,
right.
And
one.
that's what we need to essentially think about. What is going on in his office, and that's what's important. If there are issues financially, he needs to think, how can I clearly help the best that he can? And with that said, he's basically saying, I cannot financially help in this project.
Right.
And he took a stance there.
Right.
I work very well with him. We talk regularly. When it comes to Mayor Bibb, of course he has to fight for for the Cleveland Browns. That's his job. He has to be able to do that. Whether it's a financial loss or it's not, politically, people are wanting him to stand up and keep that stadium in downtown, which he did put up a good fight with that. I think that what he ended up doing is essentially turning off that valve, and there's not any more of a negative drain on their general fund.
Right.
And on top of that, he was able to bring $100 million into the city of Cleveland.
Right.
It was actually a pretty good move.
So the Haslams, 65 to 70% of this, $600 million from the state's coming from somewhere, whether it's unclaimed funds or if they go back to Governor DeWine's suggestion where they start taxing the betting companies. $245 million proposed from Brook Park, that revenue generated by project admission or income tax or however, that's a flexible number at this point. And we're kind of throwing darts at this point about where that number, I don't mean to be flip about that because we're talking about a lot of money, but Brook Park is going to be contributing to this project in some way, shape, or form. When do we get a handle on how much that's going to be, and how will that work for Brook Park?
Well, I'll tell you that we're very close with completing our development agreement. I'm not going to certainly negotiate here, but it's much more than just some of these figures you're hearing. At one time, I think I heard 422, 300.
It is definitely moved.
It's moved into 245. What also you have to bring up is property tax. All of the income tax, admissions tax, all that stuff. There's money that is being, put forward by the city of Brook Park that's just more than what you're thinking about, and that's the property tax. Without going too public with everything, I will just tell you that there will be built-in guarantees for the city of Brook Park. We can't just have it on a piece of paper that here's some financial modeling and it goes like this. Again, if it's not done like that correctly, and that's nothing personal against the team, the Haslam Sports Group.
Right.
Again, I'll just say it over and over again. They've been wonderful people to work with, honest, great people. They're like family to the city of Brook Park. But what we're going to need to do is have in that contract, black and white, guarantees for the future, for the first year. All of it. To be successful in the city, we're going to have that. I'm not going to be the mayor forever. Right. I have to make sure that this is set up for the future, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, so that this system that we put in place today will take care of the asset and make sure that we can be able to host, possibly the Super Bowl 50 years after kickoff in 29.
Right. I do think you've handled it very, very well in a difficult situation. So I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We'll have you back again. That's going to do it for this edition of Newsmakers. Every Monday at 6:30. Don't miss it. I'm Brian Duffy. Thanks for being with us.